Donald Trump says the US could be running Venezuela and extracting its oil reserves for years. He made the comment during an interview with the New York Times. The US leader's assertion comes after American forces seized 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela in international waters, one of them sailing under a Russian flag. Now, US officials say the Russian-flagged tanker known as the Marinera is part of a shadow fleet transporting sanctioned oil. Reports say the vessel was empty when it was seized between the British Isles and Iceland. Washington has been pursuing the vessel since December. China and Russia have called the seizure in neutral waters a violation of international law. American forces intercepted the second tanker that's carrying Venezuelan oil in the Caribbean Sea. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the seizures part of Washington's 3-step plan for the country. The end goal? To sell up to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil. And Nick Harper is watching developments for CNA live from Washington, D.C. Now, Nick, we're hearing the U.S. asserting its influence over Venezuela's oil sector, but also its political leadership. But to what extent does Washington actually have influence on the ground?
Well, Angela, I have to be honest, it's all a little unclear at this stage. Washington is trying to present itself very much in control, but Delcy Rodriguez, who is now running the government in Venezuela, says there is no foreign power that is governing Caracas. Now, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said at a briefing yesterday, we obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now. But remember, there are no US troops on the ground. Really, this all comes down to that military naval blockade, those warships off the coast of Venezuela that Donald Trump has promised are ready to strike. So really, it comes down to that threat of possible military action. And the hope is that Venezuela will cooperate. Donald Trump, though, seems to have this grand plan. Marco Rubio has been talking about this idea of the US selling Venezuela's oil indefinitely. And you mentioned that 3-part plan that breaks down as trying to initially stabilize Venezuela, then looking to rebuild it, but also taking and selling its oil. And on top of that, installing a new government. But Democrats here in Washington are worried because they say essentially this is all undefined, that it sounds good on paper, but how is the Trump administration really, in concrete terms, going to achieve this?
And speaking of undefined, Nick, what can we then make of President Trump's remarks when it comes to his plans to actually govern Venezuela?
Well, that's right. I mean, it all comes down to this question of timing. How long is the US going to be involved? And really, Donald Trump is presenting this as a rhetorical question. Like, how long is a piece of string? He gave this New York Times interview over the course of the last 24 hours, and he was asked multiple times, how long will the US be involved? And his answer was, only time will tell. He was asked by the reporters to narrow that down. He came back with the idea of years. But the current government, he said, is giving the United States everything that the US feels is necessary. There is one sticking point, though. On elections, he wouldn't be drawn into exactly when that would happen, when would be the next democratic process. And remember, Washington, for years, against the Maduro administration, has been pushing back on the fact that there were no free and fair elections in the country. And again, Democrats are worried because there is perhaps this protracted intervention by the US in Venezuela with no real plan, no real exit strategy, and all of this could rumble on for years and years and years.
Nick, thank you so much for that update. There was a Nick Harper reporting live for CNA from Washington, D.C.